Making mistakes is only part of human nature, and unfortunately for us, sometimes that may result in a minor fine. Nevertheless, if we are not willing to face the consequences that go along with committing a crime, then we should all be more careful about following the law regardless of our age. However, the author of my chosen editorial argues that juveniles should be exempt from this law. The author of my chosen editorial argues that juveniles should not have to pay fines for their crimes because it is inefficient and only constantly getting them in more trouble when they are not able to make the payment. He makes his main argument through subclaims of value, fact, and only one of policy, which suggests that everyone should just get rid of this law. However, the author does not support himself with any evidence or statistics and acknowledged none of the counter-arguments, resulting in a weak argument with which I disagree. The main argument of this New York Times editorial is that the justice system for punishing juveniles is counterproductive as well as destructive, a claim of value which I totally disagree with. I disagree for a few reasons. I disagree with this editorial because if juveniles do not want to face the consequences, then they should simply just make better choices. I also find it difficult to agree with the author due to his lack of evidence. In other words, his claims are solely based on opinion and emotion, and has no evidence to support these statements. Lastly, I disagree because the author does not propose any kind of solution to this problem. Although the author's main argument makes sense, he is not credible due to there being nothing to back up these claims. And he does not consider or acknowledge the counter-arguments that his readers and audience may have. I, for instance, have a few. According to the information given by Matthew Izzy, legal writer and attorney at law, the amount of the fine depends on the crime. Therefore, the bigger the crime, the bigger the fine. According to Izzy's article, the court might issue a wage garnishment if the juvenile is employed, meaning a payment plan, seizure of property to pay off the fine, or a lien. However, if the juvenile is concerned about paying such a large fine to save themselves, then they should just avoid doing the crime. The author of this editorial only defends the juveniles rather than proposing that they make better decisions starting at a young age. On the other hand, there are crimes that require fines which are not excessively out of budget. For instance, a juvenile may receive a speeding ticket or they may commit vandalism. These crimes give them some other options other than paying. The juvenile has the option to do community service instead of paying the fine. Community service works by each hour the juveniles get $10 an hour to pay off the fine. According to the website of the Government of the Netherlands, there are other options such as the Behavioral Program Order, the HALT program, alternative sanction for juveniles, confiscation of property, counseling, family monitors, and other state programs intended to provide guidance to the juveniles. As I said before, the author of my editorial does not support himself or propose any alternative ways of paying for the crimes of the juveniles. Besides getting rid of them to pay, proposing that they should just get rid of the way that we have juveniles pay for their crimes now, the author could have suggested that it be required that they attend these behavioral programs, complete community service, or take time to somehow raise the money or fix the crime that they committed. Lastly, according to Thomas Reuter's website on the law, how juveniles pay for their crime depends on a number of things. For instance, it depends on the type of crime, the severity of the crime, the circumstances surrounding the crime, the defendant's criminal record, and measures that the juvenile has taken to right their wrongs, and so on. Those aren't the only options. These are alternative options that the author of my editorial did not take into consideration, making his argument appear weak. As I stated before, the main claim of this editorial is that juveniles should not be required to pay fines for their convicted crimes because it is counterproductive and unaffordable to them. To recap, the author claims that these fines are counterproductive, disruptive, and every state would be smart to follow suit. The author makes claims of value, fact, and only one vague claim of policy. As he does not propose any solutions to back up his claim, he also does not consider that many states have alternative options for juveniles to pay their crimes already, such as the behavioral programs, community service, and confiscation of property. Although the author may have a good point, he does not acknowledge the other options, and he should have acknowledged the counter-arguments and disproved them from the beginning, and he gives a weak argument based on common sense, opinions, and emotions. The author of my editorial stands on the side of the juveniles, but he does not even acknowledge that if these juveniles cannot pay the fine, they should not do the crime. Thank you.